Today we're going to try to get this terrible old engine running so I can put it in a terrible old truck. Because I need it to get me to work on Monday. I thought this was going to be a gimme, but we already found ourselves a little problem here. So there's a bent push rod here. Not only do we have a bent push rod, but this contraption here has a crack in it. If this camera would ever, there we go. You see it's cracked right here. Must have had a stuck valve here and some violence happened. And now we have that, so that's going to be a bit of a problem. Well, here's our culprit right here. See, that's got an obvious wobble to it. I think the rest of these all seem to be okay. And here's the carnage here. See, that is cracked right the way through. So I don't know if it would have really affected us trying to start this engine, but I mean, I don't think that's supposed to be cracked, so you can't seem to see any other damage, so I think it's fairly localized, fortunately. The guy I got this engine from, he did say they had tried to start it with a 12-volt battery when he got it, and they couldn't get it running, but it was spinning over and spinning over and spinning over, so I'm thinking that's probably when this happened, but whatever. Valve seems to be freed up now. So when I got this engine several years back, I filled the thing basically right up to the brim with ATF and acetone and let it soak in and whatever. So it seems to have freed everything up now. Of course, the problem now is where in the gosh darn heck do I find a push rod and one of these contraptions here for this motor? That's going to be a problem. Well, the good news is that I never throw anything away. So this boat anchor of an engine that come out of the chicken truck, the part number on these holder dealies here are the same. Push rods should be the same as well, I would hope. I guess we'll find out here shortly. So this is the cracked one. This one came off the parts engine, and you can see it has this slot this relief slot in it here. This one came off another engine. Now these two have the same part number. This one looks identical to the one that's in this engine, and it fits over here, but the difference is that the hole in the top is smaller, so it doesn't use this shouldered bolt. So here's my thoughts here. This was the original design. Then they went to this design with the shouldered bolt, and then possibly this fatigue crack here became a problem. So then this is the final design here with this relief to allow for expansion and contraction and whatever. At least that's my theory. Now, if there's any professional or even amateur engine builders on here, or even somebody who's changed their oil before, you're probably going to want to skip this part, because I'm just going to hammer this one in onto here, and I'm not going to change out the rest of these because I don't feel like cleaning up this Titanic-y mess off of all of them. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. Also, I think somebody's been into this engine before as well, because this spring here is just sitting on here like this, and I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be like this with a washer on it, because that's how it is on the other engines, because the spring going this way isn't really doing anything, and it's not really keeping this from moving around. Again, this is all speculation here, but I think we are going to upgrade to the washer, and we're going to upgrade to one of these and see what happens. I mean, same part number, so it should work. So I'm looking at all this here, and I know what I should be doing is I should be taking this thing all apart and cleaning it all piece by piece, making sure all the oil passages are clean. But at the same time, I'm also aware of my limitations, and I know that if I take this all apart, I will somehow find a way to break it or make it worse or whatever. So I think we're going to compromise here, and we're just going to give it some of this and call it good, and then put some fresh oil on there. Gotta know your limitations, folks. I ended up having to replace 2 push rods. This one is kind of barked up on the ends here. I don't know if it's cracked or what's going on, but figured we just replace it, seeing as how we have unlimited supply of new parts here. And I think I was getting all geared up to scrap this engine. I should know better. Never throw anything away. Ever, ever, ever. Doesn't matter how garbage it is. You'll regret it. Guaranteed. My hands are all greasy and slimy, so you missed the part where I was struggling to put this back on, but we got it back on. Before I put it on, I just I took this Lucas here, and I just kind of moved these to side and worked the Lucas into all the various orifices, because I mean, I don't care, but I kind of care, but I don't care. You know, when you quit your job and you give like your 2 weeks notice, and I'm kind of like at like that 1 week mark into the 2 weeks notice where I still kind of care, but you know, my brain is slowly turning off. I'm like, hey, I'm not going to be around to deal with this anymore, so I don't really care. But I do kind of care, but not really. So I think we just guaranteed that I'm never going to get a real job again. So we'll just edit this part out, I guess. Anyways, this is all back on now. I guess since we were doing stuff, we should try to set the valves on this. Millennial moment here. I've never messed with trying to set valves before. So I did some research, and I know that you're supposed to do it when the engine is hot, but this engine doesn't run. And because we did a bunch of stuff here, I feel like we should at least give ourselves a baseline. So after doing a lot of research and trying to find relevant information on the internet is absolutely impossible, I swear. It's just people arguing back and forth about different ideas that they have, and it's just such a waste of time. But I finally found that if I set these, I think intake, if I give extra 2 thou a clearance, and exhaust an extra 3 thou a clearance when the engine is cold, that at least gives me a baseline. And then once the engine is run in and warm and hot or whatever, then we go back and we reset it. So I'll just take the factory specs and add 2 thou to that for intake and 3 thou to that for exhaust, and that should get me started at least. This is not a tutorial, so this is just me talking to myself, talking my way through it, and giving you all something to comment about to tell me that I'm about to destroy this engine. So there you go. Unfortunately, this isn't live, so if you're watching this, it means this engine is already destroyed by my own stupidity, or it somehow magically worked. So I'm gonna have a go at setting these valves, and we'll come back when there's something interesting to watch. Oh, I just did something foolish. Big surprise there. I want to put this carburetor onto this engine. Teensy little problem though. I forgot that there's 2 different intakes. I don't know why or what, but this intake has a larger bolt pattern here. It's like 3 inches, and this one's like, I don't know, 2 3/4 or something. So the base from that carb will not fit on this intake, and this is the only intake I have. Well, it's not the only intake I have, but I only have these intakes with this bolt pattern. The intake that came out of this engine is long gone, and I'm pretty sure it had this bolt pattern as well. So yeah, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this carburetor, which has automatic choke, and I'm gonna try to use the base because it has the right bolt pattern. And I'm going to try to take this base and put it onto that carburetor. I'm going to try to plug this vacuum thingy, and somebody's already tried starting on it, it looks like, but yeah, more setbacks. Well, we got the fuel injector off there, and I even managed to somehow spill gas all over my crotch, so that's kind of neat. There's our Franken carburetor splice. It looks like it's gonna work. I just welded up this vacuum port thingy because I don't actually have any vacuum plugs. I keep saying I should buy some, and then I never do. So it's gonna be a miracle if this doesn't just become one massive vacuum leak. What a cobbled together nightmare. Time to find out what's lurking in the oil pan of this gem. Probably more bad news. Oh, it has oil in it. Not even as disgusting as the last truck. Okay, well, we finally got this thing ready to test fire. Sorry for not filming every single detail, but I'm kind of over it at this point. Working on this for a few days and it's been fighting me. So if this engine doesn't run, or it runs like garbage, I'm going to be very sad. But this was like our last hope here. If this engine is no good, then we're in trouble. So I don't want to jinx myself yet, but we may actually have an engine here. Or if nothing else, first impressions, it seems to be a lot better than the last two candidates. What we don't have though is a starter. This thing is not sounding happy. This is the one I tried to fix in the last episode and it worked fine for old Wheezy over there. But something tells me this engine seems to have a bit more compression and it's struggling. It's struggling hard, this starter is. Either that or something terrible is binding up inside, but I can spin the engine over free by hand. So I just think this starter, I think I know why it's not happy, but because I worked on it obviously, but it was broken before, but now it's... Anyways, next step, I'm going to put a radiator on here and a fan and all that junk. We'll run it in, we'll tune it up, set the timing and whatever else we got to do. See if we can get this engine tuned right up and go from there. I'm cautiously optimistic at this stage. Oh look, another bad water pump. Well, it does run. A couple of things we're gonna have to do here. Obviously, the water pump. I don't know if you can see it, but the bearing's completely gone out of it. So we're gonna have to put a water pump on this. And this engine also does not have a thermostat. And so I'm not able to run it right up to temperature. It just doesn't want to get hot enough. So we're gonna have to get a thermostat in here so that we can reset the valves. I did have to already back off a couple of the exhaust valves. They were too tight. And then the engine smoothed out after I did that. The intake valves seemed to be okay, but the exhaust valves were definitely out. I think before we get too serious with that, we're just going to have to actually get a thermostat in here and a water pump and run the engine up so it's hot, actually hot, so that we're not just peeing in the wind. I'll spill gas all over my crotch and keep going back and forth and readjusting and adjusting forever. So just going to have to leave that alone for now, and then I don't want to bother. No point in setting the timing or doing anything else until we get the valves set and the engine hot and all that. That kind of puts us in a spot because I can't get a water pump locally, or I'm pretty sure I can't get one locally. So we're going to be behind schedule until one of those comes in. And before I spend money on a water pump though, we should do a compression test and see where this is at. And oh yeah, there's also an oil leak. Well, things are already looking a bit promising here. I just pulled the plugs out. And if you remember right on this 216 in the last episode, the plugs were completely like oil fouled after only running it for like 5 minutes. They just kept fouling out on us. And these ones are not soaked with oil, so that looks promising, I guess. Well, we got one cylinder at 120, the rest are at 110, except for number 3 is only at like 80. I can get it up to 90 if I put a little bit of oil in it, but it's not too happy. So I think what we're going to do is just ignore that because, I mean, I don't really care. 216 does have better compression, but it was also low on one cylinder, and then it came up after we ran it for a while. Maybe this one will come around, maybe it won't, but as of right now, it's the best engine we got. So I think we're going to use it in that truck. I'm going to go ahead and order a water pump and thermostat for it, and then we'll start getting it prepped and ready to go in. And I mean, I'm just using that truck as a tractor, so we're overthinking things here with all this compression testing and all that. Well, I think we've done about all we can do with this engine for now. So now I get to tear most of this all back off again, put it back on the truck so that I can start it and run it and move it 10 feet into the garage. And then we get to take it all back off again and then swap this engine into the truck. So I guess that's what we're doing now.
motor. He's throwing a rod.
Oh, I got this hunk of junk moved in. Sorry, I forgot to hit record there on the old camera. But this engine's coming out. We got 1 day to do it, so let's start tearing into it and see where we get. All right, well, I think we got everything hooked up now. Sorry for not narrating or filming very much, but it's been a long, long day. I think it's almost, well, it should be pretty well dark by now. We've been struggling. But I think we got her together. So we're gonna give her a test run now and maybe a little, see if it'll go fore and aft. and hopefully it does. Otherwise, I'm going to be very sad. Well, we almost made our 1-day engine swap deadline there. It runs and it did not move. As you saw, I couldn't get the thing to go into gear, and I kept adjusting the clutch, and it got worse, and it was already like 10:30 at night, so I called it quits. I did some research on the old internet there, and somebody was having the same problem, and they ended up having to take out their pilot bushing and turn it down and ream it out and whatever because it was too tight. And so I was already imagining I was pulling the transmission today and it was going to be a bad time. So I filmed some long-winded rambling explanation of what I was trying to do. Basically what it comes down to is I'm an idiot. I replaced the clutch in that truck before I put the engine in, and I did check the pilot bushing on another 4-speed transmission to make sure it fit properly, and I did also make sure it was seated all the way in. So I was like, well, how could this be a problem if it's the same and it fits in the same, like it shouldn't be dragging. And again, it comes down to me being an idiot. So when I replaced the clutch, I noticed there was a lot of free play in it, so I figured before we start driving it, I would just adjust out that free play to the proper spec, and that's where I went all wrong. So the clutch pedal is supposed to have this rubber bumper which keeps it from hitting on the firewall, so it's not metal on metal. And on the 1-ton there, this is missing, so I was trying to adjust that free play without compensating for this. So even though the clutch was actually fully disengaging and I crawled underneath and I checked and the clutch disc was not contacting anything, but because I had the adjustment so tight on here, it was actually putting so much force on here that somehow it created a drag. And even though the clutch was all the way in and the disc wasn't touching, it was just creating enough drag on the system that it didn't allow me to go into gear. And it was late at night and my brain wasn't fully functioning, but I had this adjustment like maxed all the way to the end here, and I had no free play at all. The throwout bearing was riding right on the teeth here, and the clutch was like fully disengaging, but it was just so much load on it that way that again something was dragging. So I went inside and thought about it for an hour, and then I came back out at 11:30 at night, and I just was like, well, if it's getting worse by adjusting it further towards the end, why not just try going backwards? So then I just set it back to where it kind of was. Again, I still hadn't fully woken up yet, and my brain still wasn't compensating for this block here. But anyways, I set it back to how it was and went in and fired it up and put it in gear. The whole thing lurched forwards with renewed vigor, and the clutch worked. It went in gear and everything was happy. Now those of you who pay attention will remember earlier in the video when I was messing around with the rocker arm assembly, I said I shouldn't take this all apart and try to fix it, because if I do, I'm going to make it worse. Gotta know your limitations, and same thing applies to the clutch. It worked. It was adjusted fine. I didn't need to touch it, but I tried to fix it. I made it worse. Good job, Kyle. So I guess our one-day engine swap was kind of a success. We didn't get the front clip back on, and we didn't have the cameras rolling. But I think the problem is the cameras were rolling before. Every time the cameras are rolling, things go terribly wrong. As soon as I turn the camera off, suddenly it works out. So it's all your fault for watching this stuff, obviously. So our friend and French correspondent, Brick Tavern, sent us a letter last week all the way from France with a very kind donation, and he also suggested that we desperately are in need of a shift knob for the 1950 Chevy, and I completely agree with that. So I scrounged around and I found this shift knob. I believe it's off a 1930s Chevy, but I'm not entirely sure. But I think we're going to use it on this truck here. Seems to fit. Excellent. Much better. Kind of has this cool marble-y effect on it. It is a little worse for wear, but kind of suits the rest of the truck. I mean, look at this thing. So there's our shift knob, thanks to our buddy Brick Tavern all the way over in France for the suggestion and the wonderful donation. There we go. This will be work for many miles of happy shifting in this old beast. This is the first time we've had this thing next to this thing. It's kind of hard to believe this started as the same truck as that. But there it is. There it is. Anyways, what are the plans for this magnificent specimen, you ask? Well, at the moment, not a whole lot. Eventually, it will become a road-going vehicle, but it's a long ways away from that. Putting the engine in and getting it running was the easy part. Making this into a drivable vehicle is the hard part. One of the things I would like to do is I would like to have a functioning driver's door. I think that would be kind of nice. You can see the big dent from when the wind blew this door before I put it on the truck. Blew it over and smacked it into the fender. Put a big dent in all the bodywork that I spent years laboring away at, so that was kind of sad. But anyways, yeah, functioning driver's door would be nice. It needs brakes. What else does it need? Basically everything. We need to build up some covers or side aprons for here. This is not supposed to be open like this, but the problem is this box is on crooked right now, and I don't even know if this box came off this truck. It appears as though somebody put this box on later. I think it originally had a dump bed on it, possibly, and then at some point somebody put this on and they just kind of hammered it on. So it is a correct 1950 box. It's just, I don't know if it was originally on this truck or not. Anyways, lots of work there, lots of fabrication work. We're not restoring it, but there's still, like, it still needs, you know, work to actually make it solid enough to drive on the road. Got to take this big dent out of here, obviously, and just this, that, and the other thing. Unfortunately, we are going to have to spring for new tires. These beautiful classic Goodyears are no longer fit for road use. This is one of the better tires, but they're coming apart in a bad way. So I want to keep the original 17s on it, and so there's only kind of one option left for tires, and they're pretty spendy, but it's important to me to have the 17s on it. I know some people use smaller rims and change out to a newer style rim and tire, but I don't like that. I like these rims, so we have to buy the proper tires for it. Interior, I would also like to go through. Definitely needs a seat. Obviously, seat needs to be recovered, and I need a seat base. This is just a chunk of foam somebody shoved in there, and the seat is currently also jammed all the way ahead, and so we're gonna have to fix that, because this thing, between the door not working and the seat being shoved all the way ahead, this thing is just absolutely miserable to operate as it is. So we're gonna fix that. Needs windshield, all new seals, all usual. All window seals are shot, so we're gonna have to go through all that. So basically the outwards appearance of what you see here is the way the truck is staying, but we're basically completely rebuilding it from the top up. So I think the engine isn't going to have to come out again. I replaced the clutch, put new engine mounts in, so fingers crossed. I think that's one thing that doesn't have to be done, but basically everything else has to be done. The complete cooling system, the radiator has now given out, water pump, and all the hoses, and needs a complete fuel system, brakes, all that crap. So just the usual stuff for a vehicle that's been sitting around forever. I do have a water pump and thermostat on the way, but it isn't going to be here in time, and so I don't have time to run this thing through the proper heat cycle to get the valves properly set. I did go back and adjust on them again after I'd run it, and it's running a lot better after that. So, but we won't be able to do the final adjustment until we actually get this thing up to proper temperature. And there's no point in replacing any of that, because it also needs a radiator now, and this isn't even the right radiator. So if I'm gonna get a radiator record, I might as well have the right radiator in it. So that's, yeah, everything's just thrown back together so it's operational, but again, all that has to be redone before we put this on the road. So this is the last you're gonna see of this truck this year, and I don't know when we're getting to it, but it is now at least movable, and we will eventually be making this into a drivable road-going vehicle again. It's just not, I have so many projects right now that I don't have time or the money to dedicate to it, but I do enjoy this truck, so we will eventually be putting it together. enjoy driving that truck, I think. That thing is quite good in a terrible kind of way. I don't know if the number 3 cylinder ever came up on compression or not. I never checked it again, and honestly, for what I'm doing with that truck, it can stay the way it is. It seems to run extremely well. I'm surprised, actually. So can't really complain about that. I was saving that engine to go on my 36 Chevy, but I don't really have any regrets about using it in that truck there. It's just crappy enough where I don't want to put it in my 36. I want to put it in anything I care about. So we're gonna put a little bit more of a hot rod engine in the 36 and hopefully offend some people in the process. But yeah, that's what's happening there. That engine seems to be doing quite well, and I have decided that I'm going to change the water pump before I put it away. I don't want to put it away the way that it is, and I also like to be able to put some actual coolant in it, like some antifreeze, and so I don't want it leaking everywhere and poisoning critters and stuff like that. Next episode, we're going to be pulling the oil pan on old Noki here and trying to diagnose what the sound is, just for the sake of figuring it out, I guess. And then I finally have to get back on the 35. We got all the parts now, and I said back in April I was going to have this thing on the road in 2 weeks, and it is now mid-July, and it's still sitting here, so got to get this thing done, unfortunately. Once the 35 is back on the road, which hopefully should only take a couple weeks, hopefully, then we're back full time on the chicken truck, and it's going to be all chicken truck all through the winter and whatever. So lots to do on this, but we just got to finish up this mechanical nonsense before winter, because otherwise we're going to be in bad shape. Anyways, enough rambling here. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and thanks to all the patrons of the show, as well as all the folks sending in donations via PayPal and super thanks. Very much appreciated, and I apologize for all the mechanical work we're doing lately, but we have kind of a limited window to get all that done. I have to do that during the summer because during the winter there's not enough room to have more than one project on the go in the garage here. So we're just finishing that up, and then like I said, we'll be back on the metalwork on the chicken truck, and that's basically all I have planned up through the winter and into the spring of next year. So hope you'll all enjoy that, and see you on the next one.